It was an unusually quiet afternoon in the small, picturesque town of Willowbrook, with the sun casting a soft golden hue over the horizon. The town, nestled between rolling hills and vast fields, usually had an air of peace that everyone in town cherished. But in the Miller household, peace felt like a distant dream. Liam Miller, their 1-year-old son, had never known the carefree joy that other children experienced. Born with a severe spinal condition, he was unable to move his lower body. What should have been a time of joyful milestones was instead filled with long days spent lying in his crib, watching the world move around him, unable to be part of it. His eyes, bright with curiosity, followed everything his family did, but his little body could never join in. Rachel and Thomas Miller had been through a whirlwind of emotions since Liam's birth. While they were overjoyed to welcome their son into the world, the joy was quickly overshadowed by the heartbreaking news: Liam had a spinal injury that caused paralysis in his lower half. The doctors were optimistic, but they also warned that it was uncertain whether he would ever regain the ability to walk or crawl. Rachel, especially, felt overwhelmed by guilt. She kept replaying the birth in her head, the long hours of labor, the panic that had gripped her when the doctors acted quickly after Liam was born. She had seen the concern in their eyes, and the memory haunted her. She had failed her son. No matter how many times the doctors reassured her that it wasn't her fault, she couldn't shake the feeling of responsibility. Thomas, on the other hand, tried to remain positive. He knew they couldn't change what had happened, so they had to make the best of it. He spent his evenings working extra hours, trying to keep up with the mounting medical bills. But as time passed, he couldn't ignore the sadness that had taken root in their home. The sounds of other children playing outside, the laughter and excitement, it all felt like something they would never experience again. Liam's therapy sessions were grueling, and although there was progress, it was slow. Every small achievement felt like a distant dream. Rachel and Thomas clung to that hope, but it was hard to keep the faith when they saw their son struggle so much. On one particularly hard day, Thomas came across an article online. It spoke of how animals, especially dogs, had been known to help children with disabilities. There were stories of dogs providing emotional support, but also physical encouragement. The idea of adopting a dog had crossed their minds before, but neither of them had acted on it. Could a dog really help their son? Could it provide the connection, the companionship, and maybe even the motivation that Liam needed? Thomas couldn't ignore the feeling in his chest. Maybe this was the solution they'd been searching for. He mentioned it to Rachel that night, and after some quiet discussion, they agreed to visit a local animal shelter the next morning. The thought of bringing a dog into their home brought both excitement and anxiety. What if the dog didn't bond with Liam? What if it was too much for Rachel to handle, especially with her emotional struggles? Thomas reassured her, saying that they would take it one step at a time. Maybe this dog would be the change they needed. The following morning, after an anxious night of anticipation, Thomas and Rachel set off for the shelter. The small building was nestled on the edge of town, surrounded by trees and fields. When they entered, they were immediately greeted by excited barks and wagging tails. Among all the dogs, one caught Thomas's eye, an English toy terrier. It wasn't large or intimidating, but it had a gentle, inquisitive gaze that drew him in immediately. The shelter worker led them to the terrier, and the dog seemed calm, its small body wagging slightly as it approached. The dog's energy felt like the right match for Liam, small, but full of warmth and curiosity. Thomas could already imagine how Liam's face would light up when he met the dog. This might be the fresh start their family needed. Thomas exchanged a look with Rachel, his heart racing. He had always known how much their son needed love, and he felt certain that this little dog could offer just that. Together, they agreed to take the dog home, ready to see how this new chapter would unfold. As they drove back to their house, Thomas couldn't help but feel a sense of hope rising in his chest. This dog, this small, energetic creature, was about to change their lives forever. The drive back to their house felt longer than it actually was. Thomas gripped the steering wheel with a mix of excitement and nervousness, occasionally glancing at the small dog, who was now sitting calmly in the back seat. It was as though the dog sensed the importance of the journey. He didn't bark or move around too much. Instead, he sat quietly, looking up at Thomas and Rachel with an almost knowing expression. Rachel, sitting in the passenger seat, watched the little dog carefully. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. She had been hesitant about bringing a dog into their home, uncertain if she was ready for the responsibility. But now, as she looked at the dog, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe this little companion would bring some peace to their chaotic lives. When they arrived home, Thomas opened the front door and stepped inside, the dog following him hesitantly. The house felt empty, quiet in a way that made the walls feel close, as though they were watching them. Liam, who was in his room, perked up at the sound of the door opening. He hadn't yet understood the significance of what was about to happen, but his excitement was palpable. Liam was lying on his bed when Rachel and Thomas brought the dog into his room. His eyes widened, his small body twitching with curiosity as he watched the new addition to the family approach. Liam's hand reached out instinctively, and with a soft bark, the dog stepped forward, cautiously at first. Thomas placed the dog on the floor in front of Liam, who immediately reached out to touch its fur. The dog's tail wagged, his body leaning into the touch as Liam's tiny fingers gently stroked him. It was a simple gesture, but it was enough to bring a smile to Rachel's face. For the first time in months, the room was filled with the sound of laughter, a sound that had been absent from their lives for so long. As the days went by, the little terrier, who Thomas had named Dash, quickly became a central part of their routine. He was energetic, playful, and full of life, but he also showed a remarkable amount of patience. He would sit by Liam's side, his head resting gently on the boy's lap as they spent hours together. The dog would nudge Liam's hand gently, as if encouraging him to move, to play, to interact in ways he hadn't before. It didn't take long before the family started noticing a subtle change in Liam. Although he couldn't walk yet, his attempts to engage with Dash were increasing. He would giggle with delight every time Dash fetched a ball or rolled over. His eyes seemed to light up with excitement, a brightness that had been missing since his birth. Rachel started spending more time with them. At first, she watched from a distance, her heart heavy with the weight of her own struggles. But as the days passed, she began to engage more, laughing along with Liam as Dash playfully nudged them. It felt like the walls of isolation were beginning to crumble, and for the first time in a long time, Rachel felt like she was part of something good again. Thomas, too, saw the transformation happening right before his eyes. Dash wasn't just a dog. He was more than that. He had become the bridge that connected Liam with the world around him. And, in many ways, he was also the bridge that connected Rachel and Thomas back to the joy and love they had lost. Their family had been broken, but Dash was beginning to piece it back together. Every day, Dash seemed to help Liam grow stronger. The small, energetic dog would run in circles, teasing Liam to follow him with his eyes. Sometimes, the little boy would shift his body just a little, a move so small, but it felt monumental. Sometimes, he would try to reach out to Dash, pushing his tiny body slightly forward, as if to crawl after him. It was just the beginning, but it felt like progress. Rachel was cautious. She couldn't get her hopes up just yet. But when she saw the way Liam's face lit up with every wag of Dash's tail, when she saw the bond forming between her son and the dog, a small part of her heart began to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was hope for him after all. It wasn't just Liam who was changing. Rachel, too, was slowly beginning to heal. Dash's presence seemed to ease the heavy weight on her shoulders. She started to smile more, to talk to Liam with more enthusiasm. It was as if the love that the dog gave had seeped into her own heart, warming it in a way that nothing else had been able to do. Each night, after Dash's playtime with Liam, Thomas would take the dog for a walk. As they strolled around the neighborhood, Thomas couldn't help but reflect on the change in their lives. The dog had brought more than just companionship. It had sparked a change in Liam, and in Rachel, and in himself. It was a subtle shift, but it was real. And every time he looked at Dash, Thomas saw something deeper, something powerful that went beyond the dog's loyal eyes or his energetic antics. He saw a miracle unfolding, one tiny step at a time. Dash had given them a gift they never expected, a chance at happiness, a chance for healing, and most importantly, a chance for a future they could all share together. As weeks passed, the bond between Liam and Dash grew stronger. The once quiet house was now filled with laughter and the occasional bark of excitement from the small terrier. Every day, it felt like there was a little more hope in the air, a little more warmth in their hearts. The healing process had begun, not just for Liam, but for the whole family. Liam's physical therapy sessions, once an arduous task for both him and his parents, had become something to look forward to. Dash would sit beside him, his tail wagging furiously as Liam struggled to move. The dog's presence was a comfort to Liam. Whenever the boy would let out a soft sigh of frustration, Dash would nudge him with his nose, almost as if to say, "You've got this, buddy." One afternoon, Rachel was sitting in the living room with Dash lying at her feet while Liam played on the floor. It had become a typical sight in the Brown household, Liam trying to move his small body around, inching forward on his own, and Dash, always by his side, guiding him with a steady paw or a nudge. Rachel had just begun to relax, the weight of anxiety lifting a little, when she heard Liam giggle. Her heart skipped a beat. She turned her head to see him moving, just a little faster than he had before. His small hands were pushing himself forward, and Dash, with an almost maternal instinct, kept a watchful eye, nudging him along as though urging him on. "Come on, Liam," Rachel whispered, watching in awe. "You're doing it." The small progress Liam had made over the past weeks had felt monumental to Rachel, but this was something new. It wasn't just the little movements anymore. It was real progress. Liam was trying to crawl, moving his body with purpose, even as his legs trembled under the effort. And every time his body faltered, Dash was there, offering a steady paw, guiding him forward. As the days continued, it became clear to Rachel that something extraordinary was unfolding before their eyes. Liam was strengthening, inching closer to things the doctors had once said would never happen. With Dash by his side, he was pushing himself harder than ever. And Rachel, though still cautious, began to see a future for her son that she never thought possible. She started to believe that with Dash's help, Liam might walk one day, even though she knew it would take time and effort. One afternoon, as the two were outside in the yard, Liam had managed to pull himself to a sitting position, his small hands resting on the grass as Dash playfully trotted around him. Thomas stood at the back door, a quiet pride filling his heart. His son was so much stronger now, both physically and emotionally. Watching Liam laugh as Dash chased a ball made him feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. But it wasn't just Liam who had transformed. Rachel, too, had found her way back. No longer lost in the depths of depression, she had begun to engage more with Liam, encouraging him to move, to play, to try. She laughed more often now, and every evening, she and Thomas would watch their son and Dash play together, each day bringing new small victories. "I can't believe how far we've come," Rachel whispered one evening as they sat on the porch, watching Dash run in circles around Liam, who had just managed to sit up by himself again. "I didn't think this was possible." Thomas squeezed her hand. "Neither did I," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "But look at him now." That evening, after Dash had fallen asleep beside Liam, his tiny body curled into a ball by the boy's side, Thomas took a moment to reflect on the journey they had been through. They had been living in a world of uncertainty, fear, and heartbreak. But now, it was different. Now, they had hope. They had a future. Dash had brought more than just joy into their lives. He had brought a miracle, one that no doctor, no therapy, no amount of medication could ever have provided. It wasn't just the dog's presence that had changed things. It was the love and loyalty that Dash had shown, the way he had instinctively known how to help Liam in ways no one could have expected. He had given them something intangible, something beyond understanding, a bond that was so deep, so unconditional, that it had started to heal the broken pieces of their family. Weeks turned into months, and the changes in Liam were undeniable. His muscles had grown stronger, his movements more fluid, and his resolve unshakable. The doctors who had once been doubtful about Liam's recovery now found themselves cautiously optimistic, attributing part of his improvement to his unrelenting willpower. But Thomas and Rachel knew better. They knew it was Dash who had given their son the strength to continue pushing forward. The bond between Liam and the terrier had only deepened, becoming something even more extraordinary than anyone could have anticipated. Every time Liam wobbled, feeling the weight of his body, Dash would be there. Every time Liam struggled to sit up, the dog would nudge him gently, encouraging him with an almost human-like understanding of what was needed. One afternoon, after months of tireless effort and countless moments of triumph, Rachel received a phone call from Liam's physical therapist. Her heart raced as she listened intently to the words on the other end. "Mrs. Brown, this is Dr. Matthews. I have some exciting news." Rachel could hardly contain her excitement. "What is it? Is everything okay with Liam?" "Liam has made remarkable progress in his therapy. In fact, he's now showing signs of being able to stand with support. We believe that with continued work, he may be able to take steps on his own within the next few months." Rachel gasped. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy, not despair. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, but to hear it from the doctor made it all the more real. She thanked Dr. Matthews and hung up the phone, her heart swelling with pride and love. In the living room, Liam was playing with Dash, the dog bounding around him, bringing a ball in its mouth for the boy to throw. Rachel watched from the doorway, her hands over her mouth, as she saw her son, now sitting up more confidently, try to reach for the ball. "Liam," she called softly, and the boy looked up, his eyes bright with excitement. He shifted his body and attempted to rise, his hands shaking with the effort. Dash watched closely, as though sensing what Liam was about to do. The dog sat beside him, his tail wagging steadily, as if waiting to assist the boy. Liam took a deep breath, his tiny hands pressing down on the floor. Slowly, with great effort, he began to push himself upward. Dash, ever the loyal companion, moved forward, placing his body gently under Liam's hands, giving him the stability he needed. For a moment, time seemed to slow. Rachel stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. Liam's legs wobbled, and then, with the help of Dash, he was on his feet, his small body trembling but standing. The room filled with silence as Rachel held her breath, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Liam," she whispered, her voice shaky. "You're standing." Liam looked up at her, his face flushed with determination. "I'm standing, Mom," he said, his voice full of wonder. "Look, Dash is helping me." Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she rushed forward, wrapping her arms around Liam. "You're doing it, baby. You're standing." She kissed his forehead, her voice thick with emotion. And then, in the quiet of the living room, something miraculous happened. Liam took a small step forward, just one, but it was enough. He did it. He was standing and walking, slowly, but undeniably walking. Dash, with his watchful eyes, was right there beside him every step of the way, ready to lend support, just as he had always done. Thomas entered the room at that moment, having just returned home from work. He froze at the sight of his son standing, supported by Dash. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he did both. His heart swelled with pride and amazement as he rushed forward to join them. "This is it," he said, his voice choked. This is the moment we've been waiting for." Rachel laughed through her tears. "He's walking, Thomas. He's really walking." Liam took another wobbly step, his hand still resting on Dash's back, but with each movement, his confidence grew. The room was filled with joy and disbelief. Samuel Brown had spent so many nights worried about his son's future, uncertain if things would ever improve. But now, the future was clearer than ever. The family embraced, the three of them gathered around their miracle dog. Dash had done more than just be a pet, he had given them hope, healing, and something even more valuable than they had ever imagined, the chance for Liam to take his first steps. As the days passed, Liam's strength continued to grow. The doctors remained impressed by his recovery, but Thomas and Rachel knew the truth. It was Dash, the tiny dog with an enormous heart, who had been the catalyst for everything. His presence, his unwavering loyalty, and his boundless energy had ignited a spark in their son that no one else could have. In the months that followed, the Brown family faced many more challenges, but they faced them with hope and determination. Liam took his first unaided steps within a year of the moment that Dash had guided him to his feet. And although he would continue to face physical hurdles, every milestone felt like a victory. And through it all, Dash remained by his side, his loyal companion, his best friend, and the true hero of the story. In his quiet way, Dash had taught the Brown family more about love, perseverance, and the power of never giving up than any person or doctor ever could. The little dog had given them more than just a new beginning, he had given them a new life. Tu ka chien vua viet lai ban hay viet cho toa one don van bang tiang on dai koang 152 noi len wa lin ket jua kan nuoi va dong vat, lin he voi tuk tien doi song. The bond between humans and animals is truly remarkable, transcending words and offering a deep connection that goes beyond understanding. In real life, pets, especially dogs, have been known to provide emotional support, improve mental health, and even aid in physical recovery. This story exemplifies that powerful connection, where Dash, the dog, plays a pivotal role in helping Liam overcome physical limitations. The love and loyalty shared between them are not just heartwarming but also transformative. Dogs, like Dash, have an innate ability to sense our needs and emotions, often stepping in to help when we feel most vulnerable. This unspoken understanding is reflected in real-world examples, where service dogs assist people with disabilities, and therapy dogs bring comfort to those in pain. Whether it's a loyal companion or a working dog, the deep trust and mutual care we share with animals can change lives in ways we never expected.